What makes a grandmother turn into a cold-blooded killer? For Lois Riess, charm and wit hid a sinister double life that left two people dead in her wake. Lois Riess, a grandmother from Blooming Prairie, Minnesota, seemed like the epitome of warmth and charm. To those around her, she was a friendly face, a devoted wife to her husband David, and a trusted neighbor. But beneath this facade lay a darkness that would shock the nation. In 2018, Lois's double life unraveled, revealing a trail of deceit, greed, and cold-blooded murder. For years, Lois battled a gambling addiction that consumed her finances and strained her marriage. Her addiction wasn't just a personal flaw, it was a ticking time bomb. On the 11th of March, 2018, the tension in the Riess household reached its breaking point. After a day spent with his grandson, David returned home, only to be met with an argument that spiraled out of control. Accusations of financial recklessness escalated, and Lois, consumed by rage, picked up a firearm. Without hesitation, she pulled the trigger. David was shot multiple times, his lifeless body crumpling to the floor. Lois didn't panic. She calmly wrapped his body in a green blanket and left it in the bathroom. Lowering the room's temperature, she attempted to delay the discovery of her crime. Over the next few days, she forged David's signature to withdraw $11,000 from his accounts, packed her belongings, and fled in his white Cadillac Escalade. When concerned friends and business associates inquired about David's whereabouts, Lois spun convincing lies, claiming he was unwell. But suspicions grew, especially when text messages from David's phone seemed uncharacteristic. On the 23rd of March, after weeks of unanswered questions, David's business partner contacted the police, prompting a welfare check at the Riess home. Inside, officers found David's decomposing body, a chilling confirmation of their worst fears. With David's murder discovered, Lois Riess was now a fugitive. Armed with $11,000 in stolen funds and driving her husband's Cadillac Escalade, she vanished into the vast Midwest. Her years of gambling had sharpened her ability to deceive, and she used those skills to elude capture. Surveillance footage from a casino in Northwood, Iowa, captured Lois calmly playing slot machines, blending effortlessly into the crowd. But her calm demeanor masked the paranoia of a woman constantly looking over her shoulder. Investigators quickly uncovered the extent of Lois's financial fraud. Over the years, she had gambled away nearly $400,000, including funds from trust accounts meant for her siblings. By the time she killed David, her desperation knew no bounds. She was no longer just running, she was calculating her every move to stay ahead of the law. Lois's journey eventually led her to Fort Myers Beach, Florida, where she encountered Pamela Hutchinson, a 59-year-old widow who had come to scatter her late husband's ashes. Pamela, kind and grieving, welcomed Lois into her life after a chance meeting at a local bar. The two women quickly bonded, but for Lois, this was no innocent friendship. Pamela's striking resemblance to her made her the perfect target. Over the next few days, Lois ingratiated herself into Pamela's life. They were seen dining together, laughing like old friends. But on the 5th of April, 2018, Lois's sinister intentions came to light. She shot Pamela twice, killing her in cold blood. With chilling precision, Lois staged the scene, covering Pamela's body with towels and lowering the room's temperature to delay decomposition. Then, she stole Pamela's credit cards, Idaho, and car, assuming her identity as she continued her escape. As Pamela Hutchinson's murder was discovered, law enforcement pieced together the chilling similarities to David Riess's case. Both victims were shot at close range, their bodies left in staged conditions to delay discovery. Lois Riess had become more than a fugitive, he was now a calculated killer, leaving a trail of fear in her wake. Lois used Pamela's stolen identity to continue her journey, driving a white Acura that once belonged to her victim. Her movements were erratic but deliberate. Surveillance footage showed her withdrawing $5,000 from Pamela's accounts while wearing her victim's hat and sunglasses, a grotesque attempt to impersonate her. She stopped at casinos, including one in Louisiana, where she won a $1,500 jackpot. Witnesses recalled her unsettling demeanor, a mix of charm and paranoia, always scanning her surroundings. News of Lois's crimes spread nationwide, earning her the nickname Killer Grandma. Her face was plastered across media outlets, and authorities warned that she was armed and dangerous. Yet, Lois managed to stay one step ahead, moving through Texas toward the Mexican border. Her escape came to an end on the 19th of April, 2018, in South Padre Island, Texas. A restaurant employee recognized her from news reports and alerted the police. Officers quickly located Pamela's stolen car in the parking lot. Inside, Lois sat at a bar, casually chatting with a man. When law enforcement approached, she surrendered without resistance. After 16 days on the run, her spree of terror was finally over. Lois Riess's arrest brought an end to her spree, but the evidence she left behind revealed the depth of her calculated brutality. Inside the motel room where she was staying, authorities uncovered Pamela Hutchinson's belongings, her luggage, credit cards, and ID. These weren't mere trophies, but tools Lois had used to fund her escape. Among the items found were a pair of sunglasses and the white hat Pamela was last seen wearing, along with a loaded firearm that ballistics confirmed was used in both murders. Investigators also discovered a road atlas with marked locations, suggesting Lois had plans to continue her flight. Every piece of evidence told a story of a predator who had carefully planned her moves, from the murders to the financial fraud that sustained her. The parallels between David and Pamela's murders were striking. Both victims were shot at close range, their bodies left in cold, staged conditions to delay discovery. Lois had perfected her methods, treating her victims not as people, but as obstacles to her survival. Her ability to manipulate and disarm those around her became a chilling hallmark of her crimes. Forensic psychologists described Lois as a woman consumed by greed and entitlement. Her gambling addiction had eroded any moral boundaries, driving her to commit unthinkable acts. Her silence during interrogations left investigators to piece together her motives from the trail of destruction she left behind. What emerged was a portrait of a cold-blooded killer who weaponized charm and deceit to achieve her ends. Lois Riess's trial became a focal point of national attention. In Florida, where Pamela Hutchinson's murder took place, Lois faced her first trial. Prosecutors painted a damning picture of a calculated killer. Surveillance footage from the motel showed Lois and Pamela dining together, appearing friendly and relaxed. Just hours later, Pamela was found dead, her body carefully staged in a frigid motel room. The prosecution presented irrefutable evidence, including Pamela's stolen credit cards and the firearm used in both murders. Footage of Lois impersonating Pamela to withdraw thousands of dollars solidified the case. The jury was shown the stark contrast between Lois's charming demeanor on camera and the horrific crime scenes she left behind. Lois's defense team argued that her actions stemmed from desperation and a gambling addiction that had spiraled out of control. They portrayed her as a woman overwhelmed by financial ruin, claiming she acted out of panic rather than malice. But the jury saw through these arguments. The deliberate staging of the crime scenes and the methodical fraud following each murder painted Lois as a cold, calculating predator. In December 2019, Lois pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in exchange for a life sentence without parole. For Pamela's family, the verdict brought a measure of justice, though it could never heal the pain of their loss. In Minnesota, Lois faced trial for the murder of her husband, David Riess. Prosecutors laid out the chilling details of how Lois shot David, left his body to decompose in the bathroom, and forged his signature to steal $11,000. Her actions following the murder demonstrated premeditation, not a crime of passion. During the trial, Lois broke her silence, claiming that David had handed her the gun during an argument and taunted her to use it. She described the shooting as a moment of rage. Prosecutors dismissed her claims, pointing to her meticulous planning and her actions in the aftermath as proof of her calculated intent. In August 2020, Lois was sentenced to a second life term for David's murder. She showed no remorse, her expression blank as the judge handed down the sentence. For the families of both victims, her imprisonment provided closure, though the scars of her actions would remain. The name Lois Riess became synonymous with betrayal and calculated brutality. Her crimes left behind shattered families, devastated communities, and haunting questions about how someone so seemingly ordinary could commit such heinous acts. For David Riess's family, the pain of his loss was compounded by the betrayal of a wife and mother they had trusted. His children struggled to reconcile their memories of a loving family with the horror of Lois's actions. The financial strain Lois had caused paled in comparison to the emotional toll of losing their father in such a brutal and senseless way. Pamela Hutchinson's family faced a different kind of anguish. Pamela, a kind and trusting woman, had traveled to Florida seeking closure after her husband's death. Instead, she fell victim to Lois's calculated scheme. The senselessness of her murder left a permanent void in her family's lives. Pamela's loved ones remembered her as vibrant and generous, qualities that Lois exploited for her own gain. The communities affected by Lois's crimes also felt the weight of her actions. In Blooming Prairie, Minnesota, neighbors who had once shared meals and conversations with Lois were left in disbelief. Her warm facade hid a heart capable of unimaginable cruelty, shattering the small town's sense of safety. In Fort Myers Beach, Florida, Pamela's murder became a grim reminder of how trust can be weaponized by someone with sinister intentions. The media's portrayal of Lois as the killer grandma added a surreal layer to her story. While the nickname grabbed headlines, it also trivialized the profound pain and betrayal her victims' families endured. Documentaries and true crime podcasts dissected her case, turning her into a figure of morbid curiosity. For those who knew David and Pamela, this attention only deepened their grief, as it often overshadowed the humanity of the victims. Lois Riess now serves 2 life sentences in a Minnesota prison. Behind bars, she remains a quiet, unremarkable figure, a stark contrast to the calculated predator who dominated headlines. Forensic experts have described her as a textbook manipulator, driven by greed and entitlement. Her crimes were not impulsive, but meticulously planned, reflecting a chilling lack of empathy. For the families of her victims, justice has been served, but no sentence can undo the damage she caused. Lois's story stands as a haunting reminder of how appearances can deceive. Behind her grandmotherly smile lay a woman capable of the darkest betrayals. Her crimes leave a legacy of pain, a cautionary tale of trust misplaced and lives destroyed.